Your mix might be killing the emotion in your track. Today I'm going to show you how to mix so the emotion still stays alive within your music production. This is how the track sounds like. Okay, now you have like a rough idea of how the track sounds like. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I like to do when I start to mix down my projects, I like to organize them. So after I finished organizing all of my leads, the first thing I do is I start to balance my tracks. So what does that basically mean? That basically means I go to the loudest section of the whole track, which is around here. And I start to just kind of go from the top down. So what I start to do, I'm going to think in my head, okay, what's the loudest element here? For me, the easiest way to do this is to start with the kick always. Now in this case, the kick is high pass, so it's harder to demonstrate. But I want these saxophone elements, for example, to be in the front, right? So what I did, I put the saxophone more to the front. Then I added the piano loop, which is a bit behind it. Now the main lead, which is competing with the saxophone. Then the vocal lead element. Then the bass, for example. And then the drums. And I kind of always think in my head, okay, what is the main lead element here? Okay, so in this case, it was the saxophone, then it was this main lead spiral arp, then there was this vocal effects, then behind that is this piano loop. And if you listen closely, you can really hear how it's becoming separated now through a few techniques I'm going to elaborate in a bit. But this is the first part of mixing, having a right balance going on. So this is super important. Now, the second thing I love to do after I did this with every single channel, and of course I took some time to do it, and please also in this step, really important, never overthink it. Like if it sounds good, just leave it. Don't adjust it 1,000 times plus 2 dB, minus 1 dB. It's okay. It might not be perfect yet, but it's okay. For the first round, for the first 30 minutes of mixing, it's completely fine. Now, after you did that, please take a break for 10-15 minutes. Come back again. Now listen to it again. And what I like to do here is I like to switch it into mono. So after I have an initial rough balance going on, I love to switch my track into mono. So I just add a gain plugin here on the master channel, and then I flip this into mono. And now I can listen to the track in a more objective way. Because mono kind of centers everything and really tells you what needs more saturation or volume enhancement within the mono field, because you know the saying, if it sounds good in mono, it will sound great in stereo. So let's go back to mono and listen to this again. Can really hear how the saxophone and the bass are super loud, but these two lead elements are becoming very quiet, and this is because they're not very strong in mono yet. So what I started to do here to initially start fixing this, I added a Saturn plugin, which is a saturation plugin from iZotope, and here I have the great possibility to flip the whole thing, to flip the whole signal here into mono. So I can select a band here, I can add a band, and I can basically say, okay, I just want to saturate this frequency band in mono. And so that's basically what I did here. And what this allowed me to do is just to give this signal a bit more energy in mono. Something else you can start to do also, you can either layer this sound with a more mono compatible sound, or so basically having a ARP that's more boosted in mono. Or what you can also start to do, you have to be a bit more careful with this technique, is you add a equalizer and just basically boost it in mono a bit. So in stereo placement, you go to the mids and from your EQ, in my case I'm using Pro Q3, and you just boost mono. You have to be really careful with this technique because the signal can become a lot louder than again in stereo. So that's something you can do. So after I balanced it, I go to mono and flip it back in mono and stereo and try to really get every single signal sounding great in mono, because when it sounds good in mono, it will sound great in stereo. So that's what I did. I added saturation. Another saturation plugin I love to use, I use this right now in every single production of mine, is the Magma BB Tubes from Waves. Now this is absolutely one of the best saturation plugins I have ever seen and or found, and yeah, it just does its job so magnificently well. After I saturated almost every single sound, make it sound more rich and full, I rebalance the track again a bit, and then I add some channel EQ behind the saturation plugin, because now obviously the saturation adds a lot more harmonics, especially in the low end. You want to cut those away. And yeah, after that, in this case, I added the sidechain after all of this. Sometimes I added before. In this case, I added after all this processing. You kind of have to also see what kind of effect you want to achieve. But yeah, that's basically it for this sound. After you saturate everything and after you make sure everything sounds really nice and balanced, something you can start to do is also, of course, equalize the sound. I started to stop doing surgical EQing and kind of let Soothe take that job over for me. For example, here in this drum group, I have a lot of like head sounds. And back in the day, I would have gone in here and would have done a surgical EQ, but I stopped doing that. And with Soothe, I basically just drag up this little knob and I can say, adjust the depth, and it will do this for me. So this is what I do with Soothe. And as you can see, I don't really overthink things. I don't really do too many EQs here and there. I just kind of see what feels right, and then I make a decision and I keep it. And I feel like this is something I can tell you as well. Do emotional mixing. So that means do mixing that feels right to you and don't always check 1,000 meters. Now, something you can do, which you have to do, where meters are super useful, is if you have a reference track. So for example, in this track, I had the track from Ben Böhmer. It's called Phases. I won't play it now due to copyright reasons, but basically what I started to do is I started to analyze it and put a EQ on the master and compare and contrast it with my track, and then I adjusted it according to that. So yeah, so mixing the track emotionally, it requires a system, definitely, which includes equalization, compression, saturation, and then creating space for the leads. In terms of compression, I also would always recommend less compression is more. So if you have not compressed anything yet, try to do everything between 2 to 5 dB max. And yeah, just do tiny compression across the entire track. It's going to have a huge effect instead of huge compression on every single track. It's going to flatten it out. and it won't sound so great. So something I love to do to separate my leads is to use multiband compression. So for that, I am using here the multiband compressor from FabFilter. So for example, for the first lead element, I had my main lead here, which is this spiral loop. I can basically set the multiband compressor here and it will start to duck every time the lead plays. I'll set it in between the frequencies that the lead is in, and every time it plays, it will duck by maximum 3 dB. And yeah, I did this with all of my lead sounds for this piano loop and for different sounds as well. So for example, I started ducking the bass, for example, a lot when certain lead elements were playing, because the bass sometimes bleeds into the low mids, and through that I just create a lot more clarity. And what I like to do as well, I like to add 2 bus groups. So I have one bus with a short reverb and I have one bus with a long reverb, and then after I'm finished, I basically send all of the drums and most of the effect sounds through the smaller reverb group, and then certain sounds like the leads through the bigger reverb group, and through that they're all sitting in one room nice and tightly. And that's basically it, guys. It's super simple if you break it down like this. This is more emotional mixing, this is less technical mixing, this is a lot more about feeling. And yeah, I mean, to me it sounds pretty good. And I'm happy with the result. So let's have a listen one more time and you guys can tell me what you think. And yeah guys, if you like this video, please like and subscribe, it helps me out a ton. And if you guys want to see more emotional mixing videos, let me know in the comments. And yeah, this is basically it for today. I hope you can find 1 or 2 nuggets in this video. And yeah, I wish you a beautiful day, take care, I'll see you soon, bye bye.